I'll have to wait for the people on the chat because I haven't done a lot of interviews lately since the TOS, and I haven't set it up properly, so I don't know if people will hear you. So we're going to have to wait for someone in the chat to tell us how the audio is like.
Okay.
I gotta say, I really hate it, because I'm not for censorship. Like, to me, it doesn't matter. I would love to have guests on. Like, I would have like the most radical and fringe guests imaginable. But with the TOS, you can say something and it shuts down your channel even though you didn't say it.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. Like, I was talking with Jeremy from the Quartering, and he said that he would never get Alex Jones on his channel. And you should like be able to do that because it would get you a lot of views. I mean, from a business standpoint, it's profitable, but it's also interesting. I mean, you get to talk with Alex Jones. He's got like millions of people that watch him, right? But if he says something that violates the TOS, boom, your channel shut down.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. And everyone's got a problem with it, and it's so weird that they just picked someone like Alex Jones, who's a nut job.
Yeah.
But that's it. He's just a nut job. I
don't even know if he's a nut job. I mean, okay, maybe like he says 100% of things, right? But if so many of them turn out that there's some truth to them, and it's like you watch Alex Jones from 4 years ago, and it's almost like reading the news today, and you're like, why is he a nut job?
I mean, it's a good point.
Sure, like he's exaggerated, he does drama a lot, and he was very disrespectful with a couple of things that were actually conspiracy theories. But like, okay, he was talking about the aliens. Now I get to see aliens on Fox News.
That's a good point.
It's really weird.
It is very weird. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's stuff like the Sandy Hook thing. That's what really gets people going.
Yeah.
I
get it.
I don't think people give a shit about the alien stuff, or even like you're turning the frogs gay or any of that crap. I think people really care about like, saying that Sandy Hook was crisis actors.
Yeah.
And
yeah, but like he apologized for that. He lost the lawsuit. And it's been years. Like, is there a redemption arc? Is there a time when the person can come back? Because to me, it seems that that's just a reason given so that people just like, okay, are comfortable with him being the platform. But he never can come back. Like, there is nothing he can do that he would come back. If he actually raped someone in real life, he would go to prison, spend his time, and then he would be out of prison, and then he would be able to just have a normal life, right?
you would think.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works anymore. There's a double standard now for white heterosexual males and everyone else. I mean, the double standard also applies whenever you're talking about, people on the right. But
it's also on the left, by the way. Like, the anti-war left is getting censored.
they're getting censored, but not like, I mean, just think about the absolute treatment of someone like George Floyd, who you could argue, it was an accident. There's a million ways you could argue it.
Mm-hmm.
And someone like Ashley Babbitt, who was fucking murdered on live television. Like, murdered. No warning shot, no, hey, step back or I'll kill you, nothing like that. Just a bullet to the neck when she was literally no threat whatsoever.
Wasn't there like a news media saying that if you just mention the case, you're a white supremacist?
Probably. I mean, is there anything on earth that doesn't register you as a white supremacist these days? I mean, they pretty much say bird watching is white supremacist, national parks are white supremacists. Like,
oh, but there's that black fellow that makes comedy, Dave Chappelle, right?
Yeah,
He's
I think he's Muslim.
Yeah, they actually made an article, and I'm thinking it's literally like in the Roman time when someone throws a chicken without feathers, and it's like, this is your human, behold the human, and now it's like they throwing you a black guy, and it's like, behold white supremacy.
Exactly. Just because, you know why? Shit like that, the words don't have any meaning anymore.
Yeah.
That's the point, is they just don't. They, like, we could sit here and go, oh, God, white supremacy, whatever. Like, first of all, I don't think I even know of any, like, actual white supremacists who aren't, like, not only ridiculously retarded, but just have no audience whatsoever. Like, you can maybe argue that Jared Taylor is a white supremacist, but not in the way they're putting it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they mean mostly like a Nazi or a Klansman, where the best you got is,
Yeah, like,
Yeah, but the best you've got is like Mike Enoch, Eric Stryker, and like David Duke.
mhm.
Like, and not only are they completely powerless, but they don't even make sense to people who like them.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I don't
they're
know, but like the best example is when they say silence is violence, but then you have actual violence and they don't condemn it.
well because to them silence is violence because in their minds everything is supposed to be perfect.
Hmm.
And the only thing standing in the way of their utopia, their perfection, is us. So, yes, silence is violence because if you're not willing to speak up to help bring about utopia, then every bad thing that happens on the planet is obviously your fault too. Because they have the plan for utopia. They've told us what it is, and you're not going along with it. Like you're not saying to yourself, "Oh, I can make this happen." Then you obviously must be a white supremacist or a silence is violence or whatever buzz
Hmm.
phrase they have for the moment. That's what you are because you're standing in the way of their utopia.
Oh, I think it's another reason as well. Like assigning violence to things that are not violent is a tactic because in our culture, the only acceptable way to do violence in civilized circles is for self defense. Like no one is going to condemn you, and rightfully so, right? I mean, if someone comes at you and threatens you, you have a right to defend yourself. I don't think any culture in the world is going to deny that. So they will say that
I
things.
mean, tell that to Kyle Rittenhouse or tell that to the
Well, yeah,
McCluskeys, the
but
ones who.
yeah, I agree. But like the thing is, when they say silence is when they administer the idea of violence to non-violent things, is so that they can justify violence against you. So they can justify violence against non-violent people.
I don't think they have to justify anything. I don't think they have like a grand plan. Like I don't think this is like nefarious subversion or anything. They just have made it so that words don't have meaning anymore,
Mm.
and they like that because then they can define them as they see fit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's something that what's his name? There's a critical theorist, Herbert Marcuse. He actually wrote
Hmm.
a thesis on selective tolerance. I think it's actually called repressive tolerance or something like that. But he actually
Well,
justifies like you should be tolerant of progressive groups no matter what they do, even if they're violent, and you should be incredibly against right-wing groups like conservative groups that want to maintain the status quo. You should condemn it even if they're non-violent.
but you know what though? If you take right and left wing out of it, I completely agree with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know why? Most right wingers are tolerant by nature because they want to be left alone, so they want to extend that
Yeah.
same type of courtesy to anyone else.
Oh my god, that's such a
So
good
if
point. Yeah.
if someone says to me like, "Oh, I'm going to cut my dick off and call myself Charlotte," like I don't care. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. You can cut your dick off, call yourself Charlotte, wear a dress. Like the moment you show them the slightest bit of tolerance, the minute you say, "Okay, I love freedom, so I'll give you the same freedom," they turn around and weaponize it against your children.
Man,
It's the first thing they
I
do. So
finally
fuck tolerance.
you just blew my mind. Like I finally understand the radical right wing mindset of Americans because I expected like the left says oh radical right wing when they say something like that they expect like that they're going to form a militia or something. In reality, from what I can see at least talking with Americans, like the radicals, what they do is like all right, they're going to buy a bit of land outside of the city. They're going to plant their own stuff there, and they just want to be left the fuck alone. Like they will buy guns. They're not rising up against the government. They just try to cut themselves off. It's like just leave me the fuck alone. I'm going to make my island in the middle of nowhere where I'm going to have my family and kids, and you do whatever the fuck you want in the city. And the reason for this is exactly as you said. It's the American mindset of freedom. It's just leave me the fuck alone, and because of that, they reciprocate and they go like, okay, then they are tolerant because they want you to be left alone as well.
Well, I mean, I bring this up as an example all the time because it actually had a very profound effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
I was hosting a debate between J.F. Garriepi and its name was CV. I don't, to this day, I don't know if it was a male or a female or a trans or what it was, but like it was a communist, like straight up like communist,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that was the debate, individualism versus communism. And at one point, JF, he wanted to make a point. So he said, look, if I just want to go,
I remember that debate. Yeah.
I'll take my wife, my girlfriend, I'll go in my car and I'll just leave. You can have everything. You could have all the land, all the cities, all of everything. I just want to go and not have to be part of whatever it is you guys are
not
doing.
to deal with your shit. Yeah. And he wouldn't
And
say...
she basically... No, first she says, oh, you just want to take all the gains of your white privilege and take them out of society for yourself. And he said, no, I'll leave with just the shirt on my back and my family and my car. And I'll go and you'll never hear from me again. And she said no.
Yeah, this is what people don't understand about communists. So just to simplify, like, I remember that debate. It was about white privilege, and it was how the communist was saying, like, white people now need to basically do shit in order to justify their years of privilege. In other words, we need to oppress the people alive now for the sins of the past. And JF said, it's like, look, can I just fucking leave? Like, I just want the shirt on my back, and I just want to leave. And she said no, and you realize this, that in every communist state, the first thing they did was to lock the borders so people can't live. Because under communism, you become the property of the state. Like, the government legitimately owns you. It's not.
And also remember their the way they think. Silence is violence.
Yes.
To them, your silence, your leaving, your not taking part in their odd utopia is violence to them, because you're the ultimate act of dissent. Like, why wouldn't you want to be part of their utopia where everyone gets everything they've ever wanted? You know, why would you want to leave? Like,
I think
obviously
scared.
the reason you want to leave is because you want to oppress us later or come back and fight or whatever it may be.
No, I think they're scared because you might, like, if enough people do that and they create another state outside of their utopia, and that state turns out to be better than their utopia and more desirable, then it fucks with their utopia.
Which it always will, because the more libertarian a society, the more it's going to be a society of winners. Because losers can't live in a libertarian society. Like, people that just need the government to take care of them and don't want to work and just want to paint pictures all day or whatever, ride a skateboard, whatever it may be. Like, if that's who you are, you're not going to succeed in a libertarian society. But the people who do succeed in a libertarian society, they're going to be naturally winners. And that's not something that a communist can handle. They can't handle someone going back and being like, oh, look, I left with the shirt on my back and now I have a beautiful plot of land and a family and riches and whatever you want. Because to them, that would just prove the ultimate insanity of their own system.
Do you know they don't believe in standardized tests?
No, of course not. It's violence.
It's...
I mean, racism.
Well, the idea of a standardized test, right, is like, can you pick up the boulder?
Right.
So mundane math could do it. But, like, the question is, like, some people will not be able to pick up the boulder, right? And they will say that, for example, if a lot of women can't pick up the boulder, they will say that the test is sexist. And they don't even care about the test, they only look at the results. And they will say, because you don't have equal representation in the outcome of the people that picked up the boulder, then the test is not equitable. So the problem is the test.
Well, how could it not be the test? I mean, one would think that if you took a test on whether you can pick up a boulder and you couldn't, that you just shouldn't get a job picking up boulders.
Yeah, like you can do something else. Maybe you're really good at being behind a computer and doing a desk job. Maybe you're a really good HR lady. But you're probably not really good at stacking houses in an Amazon warehouse.
Not only that, they don't want to. It's not like they're sitting here saying, like, listen, there's not enough women in construction, so we need to add more women in construction. Every company on the planet has been doing their best to diversify the best they can to shut people up, and they can't find the workers. There's no women that want, like, you'll occasionally find one that wants to be a construction worker or you know,
I don't want to be a construction worker. I mean, it's not just about women. It's like a special group of people. And even like first of all, being in construction is usually something that most people don't want to do. There are a couple that genuinely love being in construction. Like, there are people that I know who enjoy building stuff, and they're like, yeah, it's a noble profession, and it is, right? Without those people, you wouldn't be able to even have the basics of a society. But it's not a job for everyone.
It doesn't mean it's a job that everybody wants or even should want. I mean, Another great example, the military, right? When I was 18, I went to enlist in the military, and they said no. You know why? Because I was diagnosed with asthma after I was 12 years old. Now, I didn't have asthma. It said right in the chart that what it turned out to be was I'm allergic to cats. So it said that I was diagnosed, but I didn't have actual asthma.
Yeah.
Right? So they still said no, because that's how strict they were on medical conditions in the military.
Yes.
But now you can be a tranny in the military where you need to take hormones every day, and if you've had the surgery, you need to carry like a medical dildo. Like you have to do all of this shit, and of course we have to let trannies in the military.
Like it's the same reason why people with diabetes can't be in the military, and no one talks about the discrimination of diabetics. It's because if you have insulin requirement and you get stuck in a foxhole, and then the insulin just can't come up anymore, you're going to die, right? And it's the same.
Yeah, like what are they going to do? Airdrop you insulin?
Yeah, it is the same with people that are required to take medicine on a periodical basis. Like if you need to take hormones and you're stuck behind the foxhole, behind enemy lines, and there's no more supply chains, like what are you going to do? And no one wants to have this conversation. Like they automatically assume that it's because of transphobic reasons. And it's like, okay, so they want gays in the military, they want lesbians in the military. Why do you think they're just transphobic? Like no one tries to have this argument.
No. Because why would you? If your goal was just equality or equity or any of the other bullshit that they claim, then you would do what's best to create an equitable outcome. You wouldn't be creating an outcome in which the entire institution that you're trying to make equitable gets destroyed so that it can't function anymore. But they would rather destroy it so it can't function anymore, which shows you what their real goal is. Their real goal is the destruction of the institution, not the inclusion of people who they couldn't actually give a shit about.
There's actually a paper coming from the feminist academia. And the feminist professor there, I mean, I can show you the paper on the screen if you want, but the feminist professor, like she's a progressive, right? She's a feminist. And she actually talks about women's studies as a virus. This is her thesis. And she wants to train the students to become like viruses. This is her words, not mine. Like she wants the students to be like Ebola, like HIV or anything like that. So they go into the institution like a virus goes into a cell, and then they change the purpose of the cell to reproduce other viruses. So like going into comic books and changing the purpose of the comic books from entertainment into producing woke ideology.
Yeah, I don't like. I hear what you're saying. I just don't necessarily like. I think it's what they're doing. I just think it's a very, very, very bad idea on how to do things because you're creating your own enemies. Like if you want to create your own enemies, that's just music to my ears. Well, because I would much rather like, as of right now, and this is why it seems like everyone goes, oh, in America the right are such cucks, they don't do anything. It's not that. They just haven't realized yet that they're the counterculture. That what we consider America has been dead for a while now. So if your goal is to go back to like, I don't know, the Reagan years, and you say, oh, that's all I want is to go back to the Reagan years and then everything will be fine.
You're right.
It's like, yeah, but that's not going to happen because that country is dead. It's been dead for a long time.
But it's not only
so
that.
Now
it's like, okay, let's take the military. The pullout of from Afghanistan was the worst. It's not the fact that they pulled out, but like, how can you live trillions of dollars of equipment in the hands of what you claim? And I don't know if they still have this claim. I don't know if the Taliban are still terrorists. I mean, they're allowed on Facebook. So I have no idea like what the status of the Taliban is now coming from the US.
I don't think they were ever considered terrorists. They were considered like sponsors of terror or something like that.
I have no idea, right? But still, like they're the enemies of the United States, and you leave equipment in their hands, and you pull out the military first, and you leave the civilians after, and then you do a drone strike. And you don't even hit the target. I mean, Obama would drone strike weddings and funerals, but at least the terrorists happen to be around there. Now they drone strike the wrong guy, and no one gets punished. No one gets fired. I mean, if a cop shoots in a crowded area and hits a civilian, I mean, hell, obviously he's going to get probably jail time for that. But if you do it in the military, yeah, but if you do it in the military, nothing happens. And my question, right, has to be, it's like, okay, so the military is now very progressive, very diverse. But when you look at what they're doing, it's scaring the living shit out of me because I'm in NATO and I hope that the US has a strong military.
But remember, the whole genius of the United States military has always been civilian control, right? Is that the generals are always going to push for war. And the Congress is probably going to try to shy away from it if they accurately represent most people.
Yeah.
Right? So there was always the idea that like a civilian being in charge, the president, would be a counterbalance to that because the buck stops with him, right?
Yeah, you get the
But what do
military
you do?
junta otherwise.
Right, but what do you do when that civilian control, like the guy who actually says what to do in the room, is brain dead? He doesn't have a clear thought in his head. He's senile.
But it's not only that.
So
Like
now
one of the
now
generals, like Miley, said that even during the previous presidency, right? Like you had people lying to the president about how many troops are in what was it in Syria? Like they lied about the number of troops. The General Milley was talking with the Chinese, and they were saying, "Hey, look, if anything happens, we're going to let you know." And then he goes around and tells all the other generals, "It's like, hey, you listen to me, you don't listen to the president." I mean, should be a scandal of epic proportions. Watergate should pale in comparison.
but you have to accept that the Democrats aren't going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So now there was two things that could have happened. Either Trump could have done something and he didn't because he didn't want to rock the boat or he didn't want to get criticized or whatever it may be. Or you have to consider that Trump wanted to do something and he couldn't. Like my thesis is that when Trump was in the Oval Office 90% of the time, you remember when you're a kid and you pretend somebody's like dead. So when you talk to your friends, the kid's like, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" And they just ignore him.
Yeah.
And then eventually the kid starts freaking out, like, "Oh my God, am I a ghost?" Like,
Yeah.
That was Trump in the Oval Office. They just basically, that's why he was tweeting all the time. Because
Probably, yeah.
they just basically acted like he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like he'd come in and be like, "Okay, what are we gonna do today?" And they'd be like, "Oh, let's go do this." And he'd be like, "No, I don't want to do that." And they would just ignore him. They would just pretend he wasn't there.
Yeah,
So
probably.
even if he wanted to, so if he wanted to stop Milley, there was probably nothing he could do about it. I would probably say that's true.
Yeah.
Or he's a cuck and he didn't do something, which just means he's a pussy.
No, I don't think so, because like he had another general, the Mad Dog one. What was his name?
Mattis.
Yeah, like I mean, he fired that general, so technically he could do stuff.
No, Mattis resigned. He didn't fire him.
Oh. Well, I assume he resigned because like there was a scandal and he would have got fired anyway.
Whatever it was, he said that like he couldn't morally stand by Trump's presidency for whatever reason. I forgot what it was at the time. But whatever the excuse was that he couldn't like basically live like that, so
he didn't have the strength of character of Miley. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But also remember, like Mattis has been in the private sector for a while now. Like him coming back to government was actually like a huge pay cut for him. Like remember, he was on the board of Theranos.
Yeah.
So I'm sure in his mind he probably thought, why should I take all this shit like and be remembered in my career as the guy who co-signed the guy that everybody hates.
Yeah. But anyway, like one of the things that really baffles me is the fact that China developed a supersonic missile that traveled around the world and has nuclear capabilities. Like basically that is a weapon that can't be stopped. Because up until now it was, okay, well if China launches nukes, we can just intercept them, Iron Dome style, and we can limit the damage. But now with that shit, I mean, it can just strike a target anywhere on the world. And you can't do anything about it, because as far as I know, there's no technology to intercept supersonic missiles.
There isn't. But at the same time, the nuclear strategy of every country has always been mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, but like imagine if China can stop U.S. nukes, because U.S. doesn't have supersonic missiles capable of nuclear launch, and China...
Well, first of all, our missile shield basically barely works. Like, China has no missile shield at all. So the whole point is that, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a nuclear triad, is that if they could use their supersonic missiles to do whatever they want, they can nuke half of America. But what's guaranteed is that they're going to receive back a tenfold nuclear strike on their homeland.
Yeah, I get it. But like if they have a missile shield, because we have just normal missiles and they have supersonic missiles. So,
well, we also have sub-based missiles. We also have planes that like that could do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So it's
but what I'm really shocked about it is that what was it like? Jen Psaki had the press conference and it's like, oh, we welcome the competition. And it's like, motherfucker, they designed a weapon to potentially use against your people, and you're like, we welcome the competition. But if Iran has a nuke, you freak the fuck out. It's like I genuinely like don't understand the double standard.
Yeah, but remember, her job is not to like make policy. Like, she doesn't go out and say like, oh, well, I think it's this, or I think we should do this. Her job is to try to deflect criticism from Biden the best she can.
Yeah.
And
She's
there's
a PR, yeah.
she's gotten to the point where what could she even fucking say anymore? I mean, the guy I
I'll tell you what I
video.
would say. I would tell you what I would say. I would say the United
I
States
quit.
I would say something like, we agreed that we were a little bit taken aback by China's innovation, but I guarantee to you that the US government is now going to double our efforts into discovering even better technology. Like that would have been even better than what she said.
I agree, but number one, we don't know for sure that we were really taken by surprise with this.
Yeah, probably.
You know, like, just because a bunch of intelligence people went on TV and said what they said, like, what are they supposed to say? No, guys, don't worry about it. We have 50 spies deep within the Chinese government.
No, they could
and
say something
we know
like,
exactly what's going on.
They could say something is like, China is ahead of U.S. expectations by blah, blah, blah.
Or they can say nothing because, let's say, they've known for years that China was developing hypersonic missiles and have been developing like anti-missiles for those.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you tell the other side where you're at? It's even better. Like, it makes them feel more like I'm sure right now they're patting themselves on the back, like, oh, we took America by surprise. They had no idea. Well, why would you let them?
Yeah,
not
I mean, it depends on just if you want war or peace, right? Because if you want peace, you want the deterrent. So they will be like, look, we have an advantage. And you're like, oh, no, you don't. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
But if you want war, then yeah, you would let them think they have the upper hand.
And as I said, it doesn't matter because they can develop whatever they want on the basis that we're still in the position that if they ever tried to do something to us with a hypersonic missile, we would nuke them off the face of the planet. So it's not like we're sitting here like, oh, we don't have a deterrent anymore. We do. And most likely, I mean, we haven't concentrated on hypersonic systems supposedly for a while. We know they exist.
Yeah.
But we haven't done anything with them. So, okay, well, now maybe we will. It's not like America is adverse to spending money on the military, you know? But at this point, I think, and don't get me wrong, I have no idea why. I can't answer this question. But I think that everyone's just trying to get to a point where either Biden dies, gets thrown out of office because he's, you know, like talking to a tree, or, you know, there's another election and he doesn't run again or something like that. Because right now you can't, like, the Democrats can't come out and be like, okay, listen, the guy's seen it. Because number one, everyone hates Kamala Harris. And number two, they'll never admit any form of weakness. Like, they'll never admit that they trusted a guy to the White House that's, you know, off his rocker. Because he's no different now than he was on the...
I don't know why leftists aren't pissed off that Bernie Sanders didn't get the nomination.
Well, I mean, that was for a reason. And that's happened before. That actually happened in 2000. That's how we got George W. Bush.
Yeah.
At the time, the presumptive nominee was Forbes, and the donor class didn't want that because he was for a flat tax. His whole platform was a flat tax. So the rich people got together and said, we have to find somebody that we can get the Republican Party on board with so that Michael Forbes doesn't get the nomination. And that person was George W. Bush, which was the first lesson in pure mediocrity. So now the Democrats did the same thing. They're like, oh shit, Bernie's going to get the nomination. So what do we do? And they're like, well, we have to find somebody that we can push over the finish line, that we can at least, you know, convince most Americans, or at least people that are too stupid to know the difference, that it's a good decision. Because remember, most people think of Biden and they think Obama. And there's still plenty of people that think to themselves, well, I would love another Obama term. So they pushed him over the finish line just to make sure that Bernie Sanders wouldn't get the nomination.
So Donkey for £5 says, boss has arrived. V, you know about pulling out a lot, leaving billions on the desert has one good reason, you know. Look, I just think that the reason they did that was because they didn't have the time or the energy or the patience to actually take the weapons out, and they figured, who cares? I mean, they didn't leave them like any like ballistic missiles or anything like that. It's all small arms, and they figure, what do they care? They're just going to kill each other with. I mean, they left some helicopters, they left some planes.
That no one can fly, and they can't get replacement parts.
Yeah, I guess you can make the argument that they can't get replacement parts or fuel. Because from what I understand, like the fuel required for those planes is specialized, and you need to manufacture it differently than for cars. So I don't know.
Let's say the helicopters were in perfect working condition. They can get the fuel, they can get the spare parts. What are they going to do with them to us? What are they going to fly them over the Pacific and hit Pearl Harbor? Like, no, of course not.
No, obviously, but I love how leftists always talk about how greedy people are and how they don't know how to manage their money. So we need the government to manage people's money. And here you have the government like wasting $1 trillion of equipment that they can use. I mean, yeah, sure, okay, maybe the Taliban won't use it against the U.S., but it's still equipment that the U.S. just threw away.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, how much money did we throw away being there in the first place?
Yeah, but like even then, you can somehow make the argument that the defense contractors won, and there's a lot of interest, but like no one benefits from this shit. It's just money wasted. It's just like literally pissing away money.
Well, I think America was trying to hold off and keep the non-Taliban in power because we thought we would get all those rare earth deposits that China wants that are in Afghanistan. But the problem is that the Taliban basically is Afghanistan. There's not enough people there to actually hold together a minority government. So the longer we waited, the more we thought like, okay, we could just wait the Taliban out, and eventually they'll go away. Well, they never did.
I mean, it's so bad that people are saying, well, maybe this is the peace offering the U.S. give to the Taliban.
Right. Well, I mean, the only two options were to do not the way he did it, but we either got out or we decided to crush the Taliban the minute they started acting crazy. And I don't think the Democrats have the stomach for that kind of, like, they'll drone strike half the country. They don't care because they know nobody pays attention to what's going on with like individual attacks. But they're not going to send in like,
but it's very interesting because the Democrats freaked out when Trump drone strike that Iranian general.
The Democrats freaked out when Trump did anything. Just trying to come up with a rationalization.
They cheered when Trump attacked Syria. Like, they were very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, they love the idea of forever wars because forever wars require more government control. They also create the same enemies that they have to institute these fucked up, like, communist authoritarian shit for, like.
But here's the question, right? So I was actually talking about this with Arch Warhammer. In case of a war with China, let's say China invades Taiwan and the U.S. has to respond. What do you think the media would do? Like, would CNN be for China or for America?
I think that, well, first of all, it depends who actually could, like, put the attack into play. If it was a Democratic president, then they would be rah rah America. Let's go kick those Chinese people's asses. But if it's a Republican that started the war, they would say, "Oh my God, look what they're doing. China has a right to hate us. Like, I don't understand why they wouldn't hate us."
Yeah, just pictures with people flooded from the dam and one. I don't think. Yeah, like I don't think America would be able to win a war if the televisions were against them. Like, if social media would say, you're not allowed to talk about it. Only CNN gets to talk about it. You're not allowed to show pictures or anything like that. I don't think the people would like the spirit for the war effort would exist.
Well, think about it. America hasn't won a real war since World War II.
Yeah.
And that's because the political will to fight the war isn't there. If you think of the true size of the American war machine, and the fact that, like, these little, like, farmers out in the middle of the woods beat us in Vietnam, here in Afghanistan, like, I mean, in Iraq, we're eventually going to completely leave there too in disgrace. But that's just because there's no political will to actually fight these wars.
Well, there's something that I would add. Like the win condition, right? Like, when you go into Iraq or Afghanistan, is not to actually conquer. Like, paint the countries with red and white, with blue and white stripes, red and blue. Sorry, it's just to hold it off, like hold it pretty much. So, like, all you have to do to win a war against America is you get in a bunker, watch television, wait for the Americans to leave, and then you go out and it's like, oh yes, we kicked the Americans' asses.
Well, that's the other problem, is that a war is supposed to be two sides fight. One wins and tells the other side, this is how it's going to be from now on.
Yes.
Right? They basically dictate terms. Well, that stopped being the case. Now we only are into nation building.
Yeah.
So, like, all this time that you think to yourself, oh, okay, well, we're at war. It's not like a real war.
Yeah.
It's this kind of, like, make-believe weird type of war that we've been fighting ever since Korea. So they're like, oh, well, how do we win a war? Well, winning a war would be you go in and kick the fucking shit out of them until they can't do anything more. And then they just give up and say, okay, well, stop. Please stop kicking our asses. But we haven't done that in so long. I'm not even sure if the military would be able to draw up a plan to do it.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people don't understand why like defending Taiwan is so important, and it's because Taiwan is the main manufacturer of chips around the world. Like, imagine if in World War II you would have Poland, the main manufacturer of steam engine for everywhere around the world. Like, no one manufactures their own steam engine. You have to buy them from Poland. Imagine the advantage Germany would have the moment they get Poland.
I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think Taiwan was a lot more important than it is right now. I think that the issue of Taiwan has become just basically like a dick swinging contest.
No, I don't think so.
You know,
No, like a lot of shit is manufactured in Taiwan, and a lot
I
of trading
understand
routes.
that, but manufacturing, like the Industrial Revolution, we already got that part right. Like if we had to open up a chip manufacturing spot somewhere else, we would.
Believe it or not,
You
it
know,
actually is more difficult because I ask people, like there's a lot of technology that's secret, and yeah, you could technically start manufacturing chips, but it would take like 1 or 2 years for you to get it going, and even then, you would manufacture like chips of lower quality than the ones that are on the market today.
I believe you. I'm just saying I don't think that Taiwan is like I don't think even preparing to defend Taiwan because we give a shit about Taiwan or we give a shit about the
No, no, it's
manufacturing.
economical
I
in
think
nature.
reason,
Well, first
I
of
don't
all,
even think it's that. I think that America believes that as long as China doesn't invade Taiwan, it shows that they're actually scared of us. That we have a true deterrent because they don't want us to fight with us.
mhm.
If they ever just decide to do it, we will watch them do it. Trust me. We'll watch them invade Taiwan. It'll be like it never even happened.
Well, yeah, but
And
then
but at
America
that point,
loses.
they'll know that we don't that
Yeah,
we're
but
not
then
going to do shit,
America loses all credibility around the world.
which we
NATO probably
basically already
disbands.
have.
I don't know. I mean, imagine like if Japan goes to war and India goes to war, because they probably would, and America just stands back. Like,
I mean, I don't know if they'd have to because the fucking Indians I mean, not so much the Japanese, but the Indians, they don't give a fuck. If they're going to war with China, they're going nuclear all out, like kill as many of these people as we
you think they
can.
would be like Gandhi from Civilization? Like if you don't know, Gandhi was supposed to be. So Civilization is a game about nation building, and if you play with Gandhi, he's supposed to be a pacifist, but because of some code error, they made him like zero pacifist, and during the game he should become more, so it gets like -1, and through some like
Uh,
internet mambo jumbo, he becomes like incredibly aggressive, and he's like the most nuclear maniac out of the entire group of leaders from the game.
well, you got to remember, most of our exposure, like I don't know about in Romania, but at least here in America, the exposure we have to Indians is basically like the people who work at 7-Eleven. Like no one thinks of them as like a kind of nation that has their own character,
No,
you know,
I
because
disagree.
they
I
become
mean,
very
maybe
Americanized very fast.
yeah, maybe that's the case with America, but here in Europe we view Indians differently. For example, I view Indians as hardworking people with a real desire to integrate into whatever nations they go in. They are very focused on making money, so that like if they find a way to make money, they'll do it. It's kind of Eastern European mindset. They have strong family ties and values, and they also cling to their culture, but as long as it's incorporated within the grander culture of the nation they immigrate. So,
So that while all of that is true,
yeah,
they are fucking ruthless.
yes, like
Like
Eastern
talk
European,
about
yeah,
ruthless. Like when a Muslim acts up in India, and let's say like they find out some like kid got raped or something like that, like they will
yeah, like
burn
the
down an
Russians,
entire fucking city
yeah,
just to get
the
revenge. Like
Russians
they
do
don't
the
give a
same.
shit at all.
Yeah, the Russians do the same. It's why I
Right.
said it's like Eastern European mindset.
So I'm not sure if in the end of the day, if China, you know, I don't know if they really could just do anything.
Hmm.
You know, like I think India would pose because India can match them in foot soldiers. So I think if it came down to it, that I think India would get pretty crazy if they went to war with China.
Really?
Yeah,
Hmm.
and they have nukes too. So
Yeah. Let's talk about China a little bit more. Did you look at the digital yuan system?
I've heard about it. I haven't
So
looked
basically,
at
what the digital yuan is like a crypto that's centralized. So you don't really own your money anymore. You just have an app that tells you how much money you have.
it.
And the government can add or take away money based on various things. Like imagine you're speeding and the radar notices your car that you're speeding. It takes a snapshot of your face, and immediately, before you can even do anything, it deducts the fine from your wallet. Like you don't have to pay, you don't have to sign, you don't have to do anything. The government does your taxes for you. So at the end of the month, like the money from your bank just poof, gone. If you don't spend it, they can just remove some of it to desensitize hoarding. So you're not allowed to just hoard cash. If you don't spend it, it's gone. They can also, for example, control what you spend it on. So let's say in Europe, if they were to implement a similar system, they could be like, okay, well, because we care about the environment, you're not allowed to buy a lot of meat. So you can only buy, I don't know, like 10 kilograms per month. And if you buy more, there's an error on the app because it knows what you're buying. All the
Hmm.
information of what you buy, what you do, all the transaction, everything is monitored and centralized. Everything you do online is connected. So if you're a bad boy online, you get minus points. I mean that to me is just a nightmarish Orwellian, like full on control system.
Yeah, but I mean, that's coming. That's coming everywhere. It's the fact that it hasn't already is probably just because people have been lazy.
They don't have
But
the
that's always
technology to
been
do it
on the
here.
cards. Once the technology became readily available, like they've wanted to do away with cash for a long time.
Hmm.
But the whole thing, and Americans can be very pragmatic about this stuff anyway. If you don't have cash, everyone else will just come up with a different system of barter. Like,
Hmm.
look, in a prison, they trade cigarettes and ramen noodles.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
they did this.
so
Yeah, they did this in my country under socialism. So in my country, money was kind of worthless because you had rations. So if you wanted to buy meat, you had rations. If you wanted to buy sugar, you had rations. So what people did is that, for example, they started doing fetch quests. Like let's say you go to a mechanic and you want a battery installed, and the mechanic will tell you that he has a battery, but he's not selling it to you for cash. However, he's got a son who has a wedding coming up, and he would really love if you can give him some vodka. Now, you don't have any vodka because you used your ration, you're a drinker, but you happen to know a neighbor who has vodka, like he doesn't drink, so he stocks it up. And you stock up flour because you don't cook, but your neighbor's wife is a cook. So you give him the flour, he gives you the vodka, you give the vodka to the mechanic gives you the car battery. And that's how the economy pretty much worked under socialism.
right, and that's what it would work like under a Fed coin as well. You know, I mean, I'm sure they talk about one here, and I'm sure they would love the idea of a Fed coin. Specifically, so like, oh, you said something racist, like, oh, now you lose your job and now you have no money, and if someone isn't making money on a Fed coin, I mean, I think that's the most important part about it is that if they see you're not making money, they know you're making it somehow. You're not just lying back and starving to death, so
But
they know who to look at.
you know, on Facebook they actually had this warning. It's like, do you know someone that is prepping too much?
Yeah, I saw.
Like keep your eyes open for right wing extremism. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, dude, just leave people the fuck alone.
Which is funny because, like, you would think that if you had talked to me about prepping 5 years ago,
Yeah,
right? Which I've always been like a lot less of a prepper than I am now.
it's a crazy
But
person, right?
it wasn't always crazy. Like you used to look, I used to look at preppers like obviously I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of in the event of like an emergency or something. But preppers used to be like the type of people that would like pour hand sanitizer like on a countertop before they put a cup of coffee on it because after all,
What
you
wasn't it
know,
like the people that bought the nuclear bunker just in case?
yeah, stuff like that. But now after the George Floyd riots, like that's why it used to be like people accepted that there could be gun control in America
Yeah,
until because the idea of the left was always you don't need guns. You
you
have the
have the
police to
police.
protect
Yeah,
you.
you got the police. Yeah.
So what do you why do you need guns? Like it was a very ignorant and retarded thing for them to think, but at least they had the rationalization. But then when they realized that the police aren't actually going to help you in the advent of any of this
Yeah, the
stuff,
left bought
like
guns.
they all went out and started buying guns like crazy because they're
Yeah,
like,
the
well,
left
I
bought
might
guns.
hate
Yeah.
guns, but I'm not going to let somebody, burn my house down and kill rape my family just because I'm a liberal. So now it's even further from a possibility of
Donkey
being
Donkey says, "Boss executive order: buy and wear shoulder holsters." Is that a thing?
shoulder holsters.
Yes.
Yeah, plenty of people have them.
Really?
I find them to be very restrictive. Like it's if I wanted to go to a carry pistol, I would much rather go to my waistline than have to reach into my jacket
I
and
actually
pull
heard
out.
about holsters on the bra. Like, there's women that have like on their tits, they got like a holster.
Well, they get the added advantage, women, of that most people, even if they're like in redneck country, like most people don't assume women are going to be carrying a gun.
Ah, that's
So,
true.
so they have that advantage
Yeah,
that they can
it's
they
kind
can
of
put
funny
it on a
because it's like
bra.
this is another conversation that I had. It's like the best deterrent against rape, like statistically, is having a gun. But they don't want that because they're not interested in stopping rape. They're interested in controlling people. So that's why they go with like teach men not to rape and blah 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 blah. Because now you can have like some dork coming to a corporation and getting paid tens of thousands of dollars just to talk and lecture people about not raping, or some dork going at the campus for also tens of thousands of dollars, like lecturing to the campus students about rape. When you because it's not about empowering the individual, it's about changing the system.
Right. Well, the great equalizer is a gun
Yeah,
because there is nothing that can make a woman as powerful as a man except a gun.
yeah.
Like even if they had a knife or a stun gun or pepper spray or anything like that, like first of all, pepper spray doesn't do what people think it does. Like it doesn't just completely incapacitate people. It
No, I
hurts.
got I got sprayed once. It was Christmas, and I was with some friends, and they were drunk. And my friend thought it's a nice idea to go and act all tough next to some strangers, so he gets maced in the face. Now I go with him and help him clean up at the hotel because he wasn't from my town. And the next day, just by touching his face, my hands were on fire. I can't imagine how it's like being sprayed with that shit.
Yeah, so I mean, when I was a kid, I had a friend, and like we found like this thing that was called dog repellent in his
Mm-hmm.
house, and obviously it was just a can of mace.
Yeah.
And we sprayed a little bit and got on our face. It hurt like hell, but like I have a friend, he's in the Proud Boys, right? And during one of the whole skirmishes in DC, like he had like five Antifa people like jump on him and try to kick his ass and all, and they maced him right in the face, and it didn't stop him from fighting for a while.
Well, the mace
So
is
like,
the mace is about like confusing the target and running away, pretty much.
right.
Right.
So like if a woman maces a guy in the face because he's gonna rape her, then obviously like yeah, if she can get the hell out of there, good for her. But
But let's put
there's
it a
no
different
guarantee
way.
she's getting the hell out of there. But if she shoots him, I guarantee you he's not raping her.
Yeah, but let's put it a different way. I don't think there's any guy that can get it up after getting a face full of mace.
Yeah, it's not like you're gonna be like, oh, that hurt really bad, but now it's time for some fun. Like it hurts for a long time.
I don't think that's ever the case.
Right. So, I mean, you would think that the left would embrace firearms ownership, especially for women.
Yeah.
You know, but or even better, you would think they'd embrace it for what's it called? For black people. Because after all, they're getting murdered by police every day, 500-600 of them every day. So you would think that they'd want them to have some way to
I don't
defend
think
themselves
they ever
against the
talk
cops.
about it. I don't think they ever mention black people and guns ever. I've never heard any article like suggesting that black people should not carry weapons.
Well, think about. I mean, it's not very hard to think about it, but the entire gun control argument is about black people because the only reason there's any gun violence in America is because of the cities. And I'm not saying it's exclusively black people, but it's mostly minorities in the cities.
Well, then they
So
bring up school shootings, and most of them are white.
yeah, but think about this: if there was not the 50 people getting mowed down in fucking Chicago every weekend, like the occasional school shooting would not come off as such a big. It would be a horrible
I
thing
think
happen.
all school shootings are horror stories, and I think like that's because they don't talk about gun violence, right? Like they don't talk about, oh, look how many people got killed in a drive-by. No, they talk about school shootings because, well, it is an American horror story. I mean, it's mostly in America. Very rarely does it happen in other parts of the world. What's interesting is that it doesn't happen in all states. I mean, there are states where it happens and states where it doesn't. But it's also the thing it makes people feel insecure, especially like the people who like to vote for security. It's like, okay, so you can send your kid at school and he can come home in a body bag. Like that just genuinely shakes people to the core.
But that's true. But think about this, right? They argue for more and more gun control because there's these horrible statistics of gun violence in America. Like a person gets killed every so many minutes by a gun. Where those places are that people are getting killed
They
by
don't
guns
mention.
is in the
They
city.
never talk.
Where they already have the most ridiculous gun control on earth.
Yeah.
Like all the cities have gun control, but they don't want to
make
be
it
able
up.
to say, "Oh, black people are killing people with guns." So they just make pretend that all of the violence that's going on in the cities happens everywhere.
But it's
That
not
it's
only
not
that.
just
It's
the
like
cities.
it's black victims, right? Like they're the ones getting shot. So you can't
Yeah, but
make
they don't
the
care about
argument
that at
that
all.
you can't make the argument that, oh well, you're racist for talking about this. It's like, no, because if you were racist, you wouldn't care about it.
Right.
Like if you were racist, it's like, okay, well, who's the victim? Oh, I see. So meh, not my problem. But it's
Well, I
because
mean,
like the right genuinely cares about black people that they bring it up.
well, it makes me feel funny that you say something like that because I say that all the time. I'm like, oh, who gives a fucking shit if they're just shooting each other? I don't care if they have gun control in the cities. You know, like if that's what they want to do, I don't really care. But at the same time, I'm not saying that because I don't care if just black people kill each other. I just don't care if they can't control the cities and they just want to make pretend that the cities are these happy places where nobody ever commits crime. Like, I don't care. Disarm your population because if you try to implement those type of gun control rules in a rural setting, like even during the George Floyd riots, like yeah, in the city, if you pulled out a gun, like when the McCluskeys pulled out their guns or whatever, they got arrested because those cops and those political systems are not only far leftist, but they're buying into this whole narrative. Where I live, and I don't live very far from New York City, and I live very close to a city in New Jersey too. Like everybody on the block was getting together. They're like, okay, everyone has enough ammo, everyone has enough guns. Like cops knew about it. Like everyone said the same thing. Like if this comes to our area, it's time to fucking stack bodies. You know, like
Hey Doc, what percentage of U.S. gun deaths are not homicides? So like, how many of them are accidents and?
actually the vast majority of gun deaths are not homicides, they're suicides. I think it's something like 80% of gun deaths in America are
I didn't
suicides.
know that. But like,
Yeah.
here's the thing, right? And I explained this as a European to other people, especially like Romanians. And trust me, like Romanians, I myself, if you put the gun on my table right now, it's got this aura of dread. Like I would scream. It scares me. All right, it's. I never touched a gun in my entire life, but at least I can argue that the problem is that you have people willing to kill other people. Like that is the main problem, right? Because here in Romania, I don't know how many people legitimately want to go and murder someone else. Like you go and you say, I want to kick his ass, I want to beat the living shit out of him, but you don't have people that go with the purpose to end someone's life. And even when
Because
gangs
most
are,
people aren't lunatics.
yeah, like even when you have gangs on the street, very rarely. I mean, but usually like they will take bats and they will beat each other up and you know maybe hospitalize each other. But like they don't have the mindset that let's go and end this person's life. Now, in London, you had this, right? And they don't have guns. So now they have a knife epidemic because the problem is that you have people willing to take someone's life. That's
Right.
the main issue. If you take the guns away, they will find other tools. I mean, they have hammers, they have knives, they can use bow and arrows. It's just like, it is so dumb to now, of course, if you talk about, you know, like a school shooting, yeah, I agree. You know, if the school shooter wouldn't have access to guns, let's say he has a knife or an axe or something, like people would just be able to pile up on him, you know, hold him down and make sure that he doesn't do as much death. Like there are some cases where I can see their point, but like these are the exception.
Number one, you just saw there was wasn't there a school attack in Europe where the guy used a bow and arrow and killed like 5 people?
I don't remember that, but even then, it's like, okay,
No, it
five
was like
people.
last week. It was recently.
Really?
It was I think last week. Yeah.
I didn't know about it. But okay,
Yeah.
you know, like five versus like if you take a shotgun, like how much can you do? You know, it's
There's that, but what I'm saying is this: is that in the school shootings, you like I think the worst one, like 30 people got killed or
bow
something
and
like
arrow.
that.
Get the fuck out! No, dude, I don't believe. Let me check. Bow and arrow. How is that like? Because you can't call it school shooting then. It's
Huh? No, it was a school attack. I forgot
school
which country it
attack.
was.
Okay, let's see.
Just type bow and arrow attack. I'm quite sure it'll come up. As I said, it was just Norway. They're saying it was in Norway.
Jesus fucking Christ, this is actually real. So,
Yeah.
the victims. Oh, no. Norway attack. Victims were not killed with a bow and arrow, say police. So the
Then what were they
victims
killed with?
were not killed with a bow and arrow, as previously thought. 5 people were murdered in the rampage. At least 3 others, including an off-duty police, were injured. And they initially reported casualties after seeing a man walking around with a bow and arrow. But apparently they were killed with stabbing weapons.
So okay, 5 people got killed with stabbing weapons.
Yeah.
And in America, when I think it was I don't remember which one. One of the school shootings, I think like 30 people got killed, right? And that was with a person that was so armed to the teeth. It's not easy to shoot people. You'd be shocked.
Yeah,
like
but,
the New York City,
the
NYPD. I've seen there was a whole study on this. The NYPD is the best trained with firearms of any police department in America. They spend more hours training. They have more requirements. They have more everything, right? And when they get into a firefight, they hit their target 12% of the time.
Jesus. Yeah, I mean, this is something that people talked about in World War II, I believe, is that there were very few headshots. Like, most people were aiming for the leg. And historians are trying to figure is, did people actually do that in order, like, they didn't want to take the life of another human being? Or it was actually very hard to hit someone?
But go a step further, right? Let's say that it was... one of the gun control arguments that people love to say is, could you imagine if those people had automatic weapons, right? If they had machine guns.
That is the dumbest argument. Like, if you play video games, you know how bullshit that is. Like, even I as a European know, like, if you want accuracy, you do shot by shot.
It's not only that, you'll be out of ammo in 8 seconds if you're using full auto.
The only reason I can think about, like, in a video game using full auto is if you want to use suppressive fire, so, like, your teammates are running away and you're trying to give them cover. Or you're firing at a vehicle or something.
Right. I mean, the thing about, like, being scared of guns, like, or being uncomfortable around guns.
Like, they're very... Yeah.
I mean, but that's just, that's a culture thing. Because I'm in perfect view of 1, 2, 3,
Don't touch
4,
them.
5,
Don't touch
6,
them.
7, 8,
No, don't
9.
touch them. Just even counting them scares me. Just stop it.
But I'm saying I have 9 that I can actually reach out and grab right now. That's not even counting what I have in my... Like, these are just the ones that I'm just like I still have to clean.
Look. It's like cats, all right? If you have one cat, like a home without a cat is just a house, right? 2 cats is acceptable. 3 cats, you become the crazy cat lady. When you have that many guns, like there used to be a word for it. It's a gun nut.
Yeah, I'm proudly a gun nut.
You're proudly a gun nut. You're like those people on Twitter that used to put their disabilities in the bio.
No, but I'm saying, like, I'm a competition shooter. I'm a gunsmith. So, like,
okay, if you have a hobby, shooter, like, that's different.
But I'm saying, like, even if you're, let's say, into Magic the Gathering,
yeah,
right? What, you're gonna buy 5 cards if you're into it? Like, no, you're gonna get as many cards as you can.
Yeah, but, like,
because that's your hobby. That's what you're into.
No, that's different. You play the cards. Like, what is the situation that you're going to use all those guns? You don't even have arms for all of them.
I don't have them all because I need to protect myself with 90,000 guns. I go to the range 4 or 5 times a week. I go to practice. I go because I enjoy it.
See. But you know what? Do you have a minigun?
No.
Why does no one have a minigun? Those are actually fucking cool.
Because number 1, it's an NFA item, so they're very hard to find.
Oh.
Number 2, I live in a blue state. I couldn't have it if I wanted to. Even though machine guns are still legal technically under the NFA, like New Jersey completely outlaws them.
You're a gunsmith. What if you have one of those that you spin the lever and it goes and it spins?
Like a Gatling gun?
Yeah.
I can't. It doesn't matter. Just because I'm a gunsmith doesn't mean like I can own any gun that's illegal.
So Gatling guns are illegal?
I would assume they're probably legal in some states, but as I said, you'd have to register them with the federal government. It's an NFA item. Any gun that shoots more than one bullet.
You can't do the paperwork for a Gatling gun.
I'm sure you could.
Jesus, but you can buy a tank.
I'm sure you probably. I don't know whether you could buy a tank. It wouldn't shock me if you could.
That is. So
I don't know
weird.
if you could buy like the cannon that goes on it. Like, I'm not sure if you could shoot it.
What about like an MG42, like World War II style?
I don't know.
Apparently, those are super effective, like even today.
But also remember, there's a big difference between a gun and a cannon, or a gun and an explosive firing device.
I
You
don't
know,
know. Is
like,
it like it's a long hole and it goes like boom, and something comes out of it? Uh,
but in the way that the Supreme Court has ruled, which is a very odd way to rule it, but whatever,
You gotta
I,
worship, yeah,
I'll take it.
yeah.
I'll take it. They basically say that all guns that are in constant use are protected by the Second Amendment. So, or in not constant use, but like common use. That's the word, common use.
Yeah.
So, like, no, you can't say, oh, this gun looks scary, so we're going to ban it
So you
if
can't
it's a gun in common use.
so for example, a musket can be banned because it's not in common use.
Technically, yes, but no one's trying to ban muskets, so I don't think it's ever come up.
Hmm. I don't even think. I mean, maybe you could, yeah, but like it's very easy to produce if you're a gunsmith.
A musket?
Yeah.
Yeah, I built one before, so it's.
Man, can you
I mean,
imagine
that's
how
not.
fucked up like it was? Like you get in a formation, right? And you
Mhm.
fire at the enemy, and then you just sit there while the enemy fires at you. It's just
Well, you'd probably be in worse shape if you decided to move after that, because you can't really duck. Like it's not like you're standing in front of a mountain and you could run behind the mountain before they shoot back. And guns were so inaccurate back then. Like muskets were incredibly inaccurate.
doesn't fucking matter. Like
So
it's so fucked up. I mean,
yeah, but I mean,
honestly,
it's still why it's more likely that you'll win in that situation than you would if you charge into an army with a sword, especially if you're in the front lines.
no, you know
You
what they
know?
actually did? Like apparently the Europeans were mocking the Americans for this. Like what you're supposed to do is you fire the first shot and then you bayonet charge and use the smoke as cover. And you minimize
Okay.
casualties. Yeah, like apparently, like because I read a couple of like British accounts about the American Civil War, and they were saying it's like because the Americans would just line up and like one would fire, the other would take it, and then the other fire. They increased the amount of death because when you charged, you could get the enemy to rout, but it made the soldier, I guess, like feel more secure just by pulling the trigger rather than charging with the bayonet.
Hey, it's one of those weird things.
Yeah.
Look, Cody's here. That's cool.
Oh yeah, he didn't expect to find you. Thank you for the super chats, by the way.
Yeah, it's weird. Most people don't realize that I know you because people all the time ask me if I listen to you, like I've never heard. And that's
Yeah.
only because you have to erase every single show we do together, like right afterwards. So people
God.
don't realize that like we talk
Well,
every now and then.
again, if I look at the TOS, then I look at what you say. It's just not my choice.
Yeah, no. Usually we can pinpoint the exact moment. You'll be like, "Oh, you were doing so good." Now I have to delete it for that
Yeah.
comment.
No,
You know.
I don't know. I mean, it's so ridiculous because you can have a conversation at a bar and everything is legal. But if you have it online, like I was pointing this out to a leftist a couple of days ago, and he was like, "Oh, why is the TOS so bad?" And it's like, look, when I go out and I talk with a hairstylist, or I talk with a taxi driver, and I talk with the working class, and I hear what they're saying, and I'm just like, if they were to say this on Twitter, they would get banned. You're literally advocating for the banning of the working class.
Yeah, but they're fine with that. I mean, it's not that they're making our speech illegal. They're just making it irrelevant. Like it's no one's stopping you from saying whatever you want on YouTube. It's just YouTube will just chuck you off if you don't go by their rules.
Yes.
So it's not that it's illegal. No one's going to come throw you in jail for it. But at the same time,
No, but what they're advocating, and I see this mindset that Marxists have, is if you allow freedom, it ends with fascism.
of
And
course,
yeah,
that's been their line since I think the '60s.
so basically, what they're advocating is like if a company would just install microphones in your car, and they would monitor the conversation in your car, at the moment you do hate speech, they could just get the car not to work. If that technology existed, they would be for it.
For sure.
Like
For
imagine
sure
if
they
you
would.
don't, yeah, imagine you don't buy your car, you just rent it, right? Like you rent a Tesla or something. And
Hmm.
it comes equipped with a computer that can, like an Alexa, but at the same time it would listen to the conversation inside, and there would be like an AI. And the moment you say something hate speech, like the car just stops and it refuses to function anymore. And you'd be like, because you violated Tesla's TOS, you can no longer rent a car from us.
Yeah, but you know what though? You could see them doing it. If you found out that a car company decided to do that tomorrow, would you be surprised?
No, but like they wouldn't do it like that, right? Because obviously no one would buy cars from them. But if all the car companies would do that tomorrow, there is literally nothing you can do.
Not really. I mean, banks all the time decide that they're not going to do business with gun companies. That's something that happens all the time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Bank of America made that decision. A whole bunch of them made that decision that a lot of payment processors won't work with stores that sell guns. It's a weird thing, and no one's stopping them. No one's even arguing that they don't have that right.
So how do gun owners manage to do transactions then? It's like just paper cash?
No, because the gun industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Trust me, there are payment processors that still do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying, there's just not as many. Like, you can't just do whatever you want. You have to make sure you go to it's like a porn company. You have to make sure you go to a certain type of payment processor.
I see. So Donkey says all the material left in Stanistan was already built and paid for. New junk means new jobs in 50 states. Local cops can only take so much. Oh my god.
He's not kidding though. He's not even making a joke.
He's not making a joke, but it's the optics of it. It's the fucking optics. Oh my god. But by the way, like there was this rule that passed, which actually did allow the cops to even requisition if they wanted a naval destroyer. And I was thinking, like, can you imagine, like, some coastal guard going like, we got the place surrounded, come out, or we're going to start shelling the building.
No, but that sounds weird. But would it be weird if the Miami police wanted to use some sort of Navy boat to patrol the waters right off the beach for drug smugglers? Or if the Coast Guard wanted to, or if
I don't think
the
they
police
would need
wanted to use it for
carrier. I don't think they would need a naval carrier to do that.
I don't think so either, but I also don't think that they have that kind of budget. And naval carriers worth billions of dollars. Like, they don't get that kind of budget anyway.
It would be hilarious,
like,
don't get me wrong, like have an entire police station on a naval carrier. Like, that would be so fucking cool. You don't even need to move it around. It's just like, have it there, and it would be like a cool landmark thing for tourists to see.
Yeah.
This is the LAPD, and it's like a naval destroyer. It's like, it's the base there.
Well, think about it. At the beginning of COVID, they brought that hospital barge to New York City that they never used.
Oh, yeah.
And that thing, I think it could treat, they said something like 14,000 patients.
Yeah. Man, like aircraft, the carriers are the coolest invention of mankind. I mean, it's literally a mobile base. You can have like a small nation that's just the military just walking around the water. It's so cool.
Oh, you would never get an argument from me. I think the aircraft carrier is just awesome. Like, it's such an engineering feat, and the idea that you could launch like multi-billion-dollar supersonic jets off of it is just fucking cool. Like if I was ever like Jeff Bezos rich, I would definitely buy something like an aircraft carrier or at least a jet. Like one of at least like an F-35 or something. I don't even care if they take the missiles off.
Can you imagine like World War III and you lose one of those? Oh my god, like that would be a crippling blow.
Yes and no, because there's still nowhere for you to get parts for it. There's like, even if you lost it to the foreign army, the worst case scenario is they could actually learn about the technology and either copy it or learn like its weaknesses.
No, I mean like destroy it.
They can't really do anything with it.
Yeah. No, apparently like China has a couple and people were laughing because they couldn't pilot it. Like, it's very difficult to actually maneuver one of those.
Well, think about it. China has how much technology they've stolen from us, and they're pretty decent at building things or whatever. Their aircraft carrier is from the Ukraine, and it's from the 70s that they retrofitted it. I mean, that's how lame China's, like, it's doing these things is not easy.
Yeah. Give me a second. I need to take a look.
Sure. So now we're here. I'll look at the chats if V took off to go take a piss, I'll monitor the chat if y'all have any questions that you feel like running by me, because it would be pointless just to sit here and not say anything and let you have. Oh yeah, World War II aircraft carriers definitely changed the game. I mean, but they did before World War II even start. I don't know if he would have TFM on. I don't know if he could handle the censorship, because I mean V doesn't like how I talk, so I can't imagine if he had TFM.
By the way,
that would be a one-way ticket.
What was the sniper rifle that Sargon used? It's like an anti-tank rifle or shit like that.
It's a 50 BMG.
Did you ever fire one?
I have one.
Is it painful? Like,
no. I mean, it's got some recoil to it, but it's not like it's gonna like hurt you if you shoot it right.
I'm going to make a video tomorrow about an U.S. Army general on CNN that fires a gun. And he fires it, and this is his words, not mine, in full semi-auto. I can hear the aneurysm popping. It's like the sigh. It's like the sigh of defeat.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh, my brain.
That's the truth.
You know, it's so interesting because, like, people like me, now we play video games that have guns, and even though we never fired the gun, we have like some basic understanding of the thing.
Well, I always say I find it odd that so many people I know like a decent amount about guns, and it's from video games. Like, because I always wonder, like, oh, did they grow up with guns and don't have them anymore? Like, and then I realized, like, oh, they learned it all from video games, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, obviously it doesn't compare with having a real gun, right?
No.
But, like, at least you know that full semi-auto is mentally challenging.
There's no such thing as full semi-auto.
No, it's mentally deficient to say something like that.
Yeah.
It's like saying, okay, so I went into the car, and I went into the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth gear, and I went into the red rocket. You know, it's like... It's like saying like that to a race car driver. You know, after fifth, I went into rocket.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it doesn't make any sense, but... As I said, I think it's cool that people know about guns. Like, I think the more people that know about it, the more demystified it becomes. Like, I think it's a good thing that people learn about guns. They learn the little things about guns, the nuances about guns, like, because then I don't have to worry so much about people losing their mind. Like, 90% of the people that lose their minds about it are women. So,
really?
You know, yeah. I mean, if you look at every, like, major anti-gun, they're all run by women.
There were the kids, the Covington, no, not the Covington kids, the what was it? The David Hogg one, the business starter, the pillow maker.
Oh, My Pillow.
No, like so yeah, Mike Pillow was right winger, and then you had one of those kids, David Hogg. I
remember him.
Yeah, he started his own pillow company in order to compete with the My Pillow one.
Yeah, oddly, I haven't heard of his pillow company, so obviously they didn't do so good.
He actually, sorry, it went under, and he gave it to someone else.
He gave it to someone. It must have been a very valuable company, let me tell you.
Well, if you look at like what he aimed for, he wanted it to be environmental friendly. He wanted to pay everyone a living wage. He wanted like not to lie to people, like no false advertising. And I'm thinking, it's like, how about you start by making a profit, and after you make a profit, you start adding things that might cost you money?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I want to be able to give everybody a free pony, you know, like make sure that everybody has a gourmet chef. That's nice that you want to do all of that. It's not really all that easy.
Tunushi says a black foreign exchange student from Germany and Finland threw a tizzy because a bunch of freshmen were LARPing Star of Africa game board pieces. She demands that the production of that game stops.
Well, man, you know, good luck with that one, I guess.
I'm looking at how the left uses immigrants. Like, a lot of people say, well, why do you care? Because they can't vote. So assuming that this is entirely true, the pressure they could give, like, they followed that Democratic woman into the bathroom, and they were like, we knocked on doors for you. We got you elected. We can get you unelected. And I'm thinking, okay, but you're literally saying you're not a citizen, and you're influencing the politics of that nation at the highest level.
But that's why people like that, like in a sane society, they would have just grabbed her and deported her, like instantly.
In Romania,
they would have grabbed her, arrested her, and brought her straight to the border and just kicked her right over it.
In Romania, but you know, in the U.S. they can't do that because if a Democrat does that, he never gets elected again.
Right. Basically,
in the U.S., you have the Democrats speaking Spanish on election day, which is really dumb considering that the elections are in English. So assuming like someone who can't understand English watches you, like they're not going to watch you for like the 5 seconds you speak Spanish in a very broken Spanish, by the way.
You'd be surprised. And most like ballots, like most polling places, you can get all of your shit in what's it called?
In your language, but
in Spanish, then, or like even, but Spanish is like more common. Like that's not
then, right? Like you had a couple of Democrats that went and campaigned in Mexico. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, and even then, like you have like I think it was like Corey or someone, like he went over the border and got people to cross the border. Like you have politicians doing people committing crime. It's like, but the thing is, like, they would never abolish the border because then you don't get the cheap labor, and then those people might actually vote, and you might.
Well, that's
actually...
the problem. That's why the Republicans, even though they claim that they're not that they're not about open borders, that's why they go along with it anyway. Is because it's because of the cheap labor.
Yes.
But because you could stop illegal immigration tomorrow, like pretty much without even doing anything on the border.
Exactly.
Just by making it known that anybody who hires an illegal immigrant is facing 10 years in prison.
Yes. Like exactly what they did with COVID. It would be, and that you don't even have to give prison time. You would be like, any company that is found to have illegal people, boom, $10,000 fine per person.
Yep, that would be it. You'd never hear about it. People would be too afraid to hire illegal.
And they did it with the mandates, right? Like with the mandates, it's like, oh, you don't have papers, you don't have papers. Oh, you don't have papers. Okay, $20,000 fine. And then apparently that's perfectly okay. That's not fascist in any way, shape, or form, right? Like giving people papers and then checking them. That's not fascist. But if you ask
they
for
just
an
want
ID,
to keep you safe. They just want to stop you, like, because if you're not vaccinated, then for some reason people who are vaccinated are at risk of getting sick, only from unvaccinated people. So don't you understand? That's why they have to do it.
The university and the students already apologized. I don't want apologies. I want consequences. The game has been popular since 1951. Man, like, the entitlement is so... Oh, my fucking God. But it's because your country allows it, okay? Like, that would never happen in Romania.
Of course not.
Like,
it wouldn't happen in any semi-sane country.
Like, if you did it in Romania or in Russia, they will tell you, look, this is how we do things. And if you didn't like it, why did you come here?
Yeah, it's about right.
They would literally be like, you had all the countries in the world you could have gone to. Why did you choose this one if you hate our culture? There's nothing you can say. Like, there is no argument to be had.
Nope.
I mean, it's like going in China and complaining about the dog festival. It's like, what do you think the Chinese would tell me? They would tell me, look, if you didn't like it, why did you come here?
Yeah. Well, as I said, that's what any sane country would just look at you and say, well, why are you here? Like, if you don't want to watch us roast dogs alive and they're like, why would you come here?
But it's not only
like,
that. I mean, I have a friend that went to Spain a couple of years ago. It was like 10 or 15 years ago. And he was complaining about the bull festivals and, like when people run away from the bulls. And he was told, like, quite firmly by someone there, it's like, if you didn't like it, why did you come here?
Yeah. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why did you go there? Like, what was your purpose of going there?
Yeah, like, why would, like, when in Rome, do what the Romans do is the saying.
Yeah.
But like, it's getting to the point where if I travel to Saudi Arabia, I don't have to be more Saudi Arabian. Like, Saudi Arabia needs to be more Romanian.
Well, I mean, they'll cut your head off if you try that shit, but...
Well, probably not. I mean, there was another case, and I remember it. Like, there was this British chap, and he was very old, and he got 100 lashes for being caught with alcohol, right? And at first I was like, I mean... He shouldn't have gone there, but, like, maybe he didn't know, but even that is not excusable. And then I find out that he lived there for, like, 10 years. And I'm like, motherfucker. Like, you lived there for 10 years, you knew exactly what you're getting yourself into. Why would you do this? Like, it's not like it was life-saving medicine. Like, you went there, you lived there for 10 years, and you were smuggling alcohol. Like, of course you're going to get the law.
Look, I don't care what anyone says. Like, I know that you can't, and I've never been to Saudi Arabia. I have no intention of ever going there. And I know that you can't drink alcohol in Saudi Arabia. For someone to try to claim like they didn't know what...
No. There's exemptions. Like, for example, I don't know about Saudi, but I think, like, there's other Muslim nations where if you're a tourist, you're allowed to. So, yeah, like, you have, like, these places, but they're only for tourists. So only, like, on the hotel ground, only on certain areas. And even then, they will look at you the wrong way. Even then, like, they will judge you and you might get into trouble for doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite sure that, like, I don't want to be the guy that gets arrested in, like, Bahrain for drinking alcohol just because I think, like, oh, why not? They allow it. Like,
I mean,
if I want to go somewhere and drink alcohol, why would I go to Bahrain in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of stories that are really fucked up, and I kind of get it. Like for example, there was a couple that went. I believe it was the Arab Emirates or Qatar. I forgot which, but the woman gets raped, and she goes
Hmm.
to the cops and she says like I got raped, so they arrest her because that's sex outside of marriage, and it
Yeah.
created an entire international incident. And I kind of see that, okay, because like no person that doesn't thinks that they're going to go to the cops and they're going to say, look, a crime was committed against me and they're going to be arrested. Like no sane person thinks like that. um
Well, I've never understood people's like desire to go to these Middle Eastern Muslim theocracies anyway.
it's the vogue, I
Like,
guess.
I guess, but like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
can't
mean
imagine.
it's like the American that went to North Korea. Like why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah, like what are you gaining from going to North Korea except for brain damage and death?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because a lot of people actually thought that he stole that, but I was looking at it and it's like I'm looking at the recording they showed and it's like a very dark silhouette, and he just picks up the poster and respectfully places it on the ground. Like, how do you know they're not just framing him?
And but I'm saying even if they were framing him, you're in North Korea.
Yeah, why would
Like
you go
it's
there?
not like you expected to be treated, great by by the justice system.
Yeah, and you're an American. I mean, if you're a Russian or something, like it would be a different story.
So I think that's another thing about Americans is Americans just like to think that they can go anywhere and do whatever they want, and people will be like, "Oh no, it's cool. He's an American. He drink alcohol in
No,
Saudi
no, no,
Arabia or
no.
whatever."
I think it's
But
leftist. I think it's leftist. Like leftists, they take security for granted, and they think just because I have security in my state or where I live, that's pretty much the same thing all over the world. So if I'm in trouble, I can just call 911 and there's going to be a cop to help me. And then they take these biking trips to nations that are in civil strife and they get decapitated, or they do these tourist roads in places that are very dangerous and they don't realize just what they're doing.
hey, I don't know any right winger that would want to go to a Muslim theocracy in the first place. So,
Oh, I know a
like, I would
couple.
assume it's leftist just because why would that be a place you want to go on vacation?
I mean, I would probably go to Egypt to see the pyramids, or I would go in a place to see the desert. But again, I would at least know the culture there beforehand, and I would know that okay, first of all, I wouldn't go to Syria, I wouldn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan, but I would probably go to like Qatar or the UAE, and I would have to read on like what's acceptable and what's not, to fit in so that you don't drag people's attention to you.
I guess I just wouldn't want to go to any one of those places in the first place.
Well, yeah,
Like,
but you're
I just have no
Jewish, so
desire.
yeah, but you're Jewish, so I mean that
That's true too. But
that
but then
works
again,
against you.
like, but I wouldn't want to go to like Africa or Central America either. So I don't like. I just
Yeah,
wouldn't. I wouldn't want to go anywhere that's not at least as nice as where I am now.
I mean
Not on
there are people.
vacation.
Well, I do respect the people that know what they're getting themselves into. It's like to me, it's like someone that does extreme skateboarding or does extreme sports, and they like the danger. They want to go in a safari. They want to do something extreme. There was this chap who actually went to Afghanistan because he wanted to go to the most dangerous country, and he was raising money for charity or something, and he actually managed to get out. So I kind of understand and respect those people. The ones that I don't get is the ones that are so innocent and so uneducated about what they're getting themselves into. Those are the ones that baffle me.
I mean, don't you remember there was those two girls? I think they were from Sweden,
Yes.
and they went to like where was it, Morocco, because they heard there was good hiking,
Yeah,
and
harrowing.
went and like lived. And they lived in like a tent in Morocco for a couple weeks, and then that worked out great. They both got their heads chopped off.
It was harrowing. I mean, it was on the internet. It
I
like
know, I know, and I of course when they announced it, they were trying to like I was at a on a press stream
mhm.
where they announced it, and they said like, oh, they're putting up links, and they put up a link there to show like where the link was. I didn't realize. I thought they were putting up like a link to
Yeah,
press
man, it
information,
fucks you up. I mean, it really takes something out of you when you see that. It's just
because you think to yourself like, okay, if someone ever came into my house and my family, like I get it. Like I would be pretty fucking ready to murder any motherfucker who came into my house and expected that they were going to hurt my family. But like these people went and cut this girl's head off as she like screamed for mommy.
yeah.
Like what kind of
Just don't
horrid
remind me because it's so horrifying. Yeah.
But that's
But
my
I
point.
agree.
Like, what kind of horror show of a human being do you have to be able to even contemplate that?
You know, I'm curious. Like maybe the solution isn't to censor these things. Maybe the solution is to show it to people so that they understand the danger of being so irresponsible and like traveling in a place that's not provided with the same security you're used to. Because like you're not built to survive in these places. I mean, there are people who know how to survive in those places, and then exactly as I said, just make sure you don't stand out of the crowd. Learn their traditions and learn their culture so that you don't offend anyone and you don't upset anyone. Don't flaunt wealth. Don't show you're an American or a Swedish person. Like that's how you need to be in the mindset if you want to go there.
Yeah, I'm not all that positive that a Swedish person can hide it in Morocco. Like they had like blonde hair and blue eyes. Like it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be like people were coming up to them like, oh my God, where are you from? And they're like,
Well, okay,
you
so as
know,
as a woman, it's very difficult to hide it in a theocracy. But if you wear like a full burqa, they wouldn't know.
that's true. But I don't know. When I was a kid, they used to do that. When the prom came, they would always like put a mangled like car out like in front of the police department to show what happens if you like drink and drive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're like, oh, you could be like one of these people that gets caught in this fucking mangled car.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, I don't think it really did any good for anybody, but most people I know didn't drive to the prom in the first place. So
Well, they do
even if
that
they
with
got drunk,
cancer. I mean, you have the most ghastly images on cigarettes here. Because I wanted to buy my dad a present, so I bought him a pipe. And I had to
hmm
buy some tobacco because I don't smoke. And my God, like there were the most ghastly images with people that were going through surgery or they had like mouth cancer and shit like that. And I'm like, God, it's like but yeah, like maybe the idea of scaring people straight works, which is kind of funny because they was talking about that on MSNBC.
well, they
Um,
used to have a program. I went through it when I was a freshman in high school because I used to ditch school all the time, and it was called Scared Straight. And they brought you to Rawway Prison, which is like a maximum security prison here in New Jersey.
mhm.
And they would like put you in a room with a whole bunch of convicts, and the convicts would be like, oh, when you get here, I'm gonna rape you and I'm gonna do all this horrible shit to you. Like you don't want to go out and commit crime because once you start, you won't stop, and all of that. Like I don't know, maybe it's because like I tend to laugh when I'm uncomfortable, but I just started cracking up when the guy was doing it, and like he was ready to come after me. Like if there wasn't a correction officer in there, and they stopped the program because eventually that did happen. Somebody
Oh my
said something to
God.
a convict that they
Yeah,
didn't like.
but
The
you
guy
know
punched
why
him in the
you
face.
know why they do that? Because I actually listen to a lot of prison channels, and it's so interesting because you would think it's like, okay, so what? He's a crazy person, and apparently no. In prison, it's all about respect. Like if you don't demand respect from people, they're going to beat you up.
Oh yeah,
Like
if not kill
if
you.
word goes out that there was a kid laughing at him and he didn't do anything about it or didn't try to do anything about it, then they're going to beat his shit up the next time because they're going to
For
view them as
sure.
weak. Yeah, it's so fucked up, isn't it? Like the system act, and this is what Milton Friedman said. He said that the most animalistic humans become is in a controlled system, not in a free society. Like the
Of
most
course.
inequality and the most injustice you have is in prisons. It's in the Soviet Union. It's not in free societies.
Of course. Of course, because people will do whatever they can to break out of just the monotony of doing fucking nothing. Like it just is what it is, and also like just the way that I mean, it's one of those weird things. I don't even know how to explain it. But I don't know but that never worked on anyone I knew either. Like everybody went to the scared straight in the prison thing, and
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah,
oh,
no,
you
like
know what?
studies show it doesn't work. But again, the scare straight I don't think is as graphic as the gory images that you can see on the consequences if you travel wherever you want. Donkey says the VIP tour I got of a real U.S. aircraft carrier from my friend, the captain, was too fucking cool. Hashtag true story. So is U.S. best or worst? Maybe pick one. I don't know. I think like the woke people wouldn't be able to make aircraft carriers like they used to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that like Zimbabwe isn't known for their aircraft carriers.
It's a thing that like most countries don't have aircraft carriers. It's like very few of them. I think the U.S. and I think like some countries in Europe may have. I don't even know if Yeah, Britain has one or two. Like they're
Britain,
incredibly
yeah, but they're an
expensive.
island, and I mean Britain and America. How different are the people? Like they're
The
pretty much the
dashing
same.
rogue wants to know who you are. He's an American.
You know what's funny is if he had asked that question like a couple of years ago, like everybody knew who I was because you either absolutely loved me or absolutely hated me. I'm liking the thing where people are like, who is like I have my following and I have the people I talk to on my shows, but like at least I'm not knowing like people don't remember me as the guy that like made Mike Enoch cry.
Really?
You
Made him
know?
cry?
Yeah, but don't you remember that debate?
I didn't see the debate. Why was he crying?
Uh, because I kept bringing up his wife.
Oh my god, dude! If I'm not mistaken, wasn't his wife like okay? So he was anti-Semitic, and his wife turned out to be like a quarter Jewish, and the
No,
chat,
she was straight up Jewish
or she
when he
was straight
started the
up Jewish.
daily
Okay, yeah, and the
when
people.
he started the Daily Show. Like he was basically like having a Nazi podcast, and his wife is Jewish. Like it wasn't like she was like part Jewish or whatever. Like she was straight up Jewish.
And the
And I guess he
community
just
complained, right? Like the community wanted him to divorce or something.
well, no, once it came out like who he was, like she didn't realize that that's like what he was doing. He probably was like hiding and or if like she heard anything bad, he probably said it was
So he was
satire or
grifting
whatever.
basically, like he didn't believe it, but or like how would you explain it? Like maybe he made an exception for her.
No, I like for he said so he's never discussed it really because he claims that you can't he couldn't because when they got divorced like there's a court order that he's not allowed to discuss like any of it.
Is that true though?
So
Do you think that's the
well that's
case?
what happened in the debate when I kept bringing it up is he kept going like like talk about something different and like I guess I definitely didn't know. I barely knew who he was, but like I guess JF also didn't know that like he's not allowed to talk about it. So the more I kept like kicking him in the balls, like he was just like, "Ow, stop it,"
But
And then he
do you
got like
think
so disoriented, he had like tears in his eyes.
is that like a common procedure in a divorce that you like get a gag order not to talk about your wife?
It could be in a high profile thing like this. Like I'm sure that was embarrassing as fuck for her, like, and she doesn't want him going like, "Oh, she knew," like.
Well, you're Jewish. Like, how is it viewed in a Jewish community if you marry a Nazi?
I mean, granted, she wouldn't live in a Jewish community. Like she's obviously not religious if she married someone who isn't even Jewish. But
But
like,
like, hold on.
yeah, I don't think the community would like take too strongly to the idea of like, oh, meet my husband.
But okay, so you're an actual practicing Jew. Like, you're not the Hollywood
Yeah.
type of Jewish people, right? So you know
Yep.
more about this. Like, can a woman from a Jewish community like marry a non-Jew without getting ostracized?
In a religious community,
Yeah, like in your community, like would it be possible? Like obviously
no,
people wouldn't like it, but
no,
if a Jewish woman like married a non-Jewish man,
no, it wouldn't be possible.
so she would be ostracized.
I mean, for a lot of different reasons, but the main reason being like the kids all go to the same private schools. Like they all know each other growing up. Like the community wouldn't be cool because her kids wouldn't be like most likely be Jewish.
But what if like the
So
husband agrees that the kids will be raised as Jewish?
it doesn't matter. Like it still wouldn't be like how it's one of those things that they probably just wouldn't even want to have to explain to people.
Mm.
Like why doesn't she believe in the same things we do? Because they don't like learn growing up that there's that many differences.
So we have the same with the Romas in Romania. Like they
Hmm.
won't let the women marry unless it's a Roma. But like sometimes a woman runs away and she comes back and she's already married, right? Um,
Hmm.
and if that happens, like how would the family do it? Like what if the family actually loves her and don't want to ostracize her? Like what would happen?
I don't think they. I don't think. Well, it's not up to the family. It's up to the community, and it wouldn't matter. Like no one would say she's a bad person. Like no one's
Hmm.
looking at her like, oh my god, this non-Jewish person is a bad person.
Yeah.
It's against the religion to marry out. So like if someone were to bring a ham sandwich into community, they would get the same treatment.
Hmm.
Like the
So
people
like
just wouldn't be okay with
they
it.
would ostracize the parents. Like they wouldn't be allowed in the synagogue or.
Yeah, they would just tell them to fuck off. I mean, most likely.
Tell me the case with the guy that cheat and he got ostracized by the community with the plumber, I think.
Which I talk about that all the time. Like that. No, there was a couple that lived. It wasn't in my community. It was a community. But they what's it called? I guess like they had a plumber that was doing some work on their house, and she wound up fucking the plumber. And I mean, like, not only did she wasn't allowed back in the synagogue. He got fought. Like, no one in the community will do business with him anymore. Like they won't let their kids into the schools. Like nothing. Like because she's a whore. And how do you teach people to not be whores? Okay, if she's a whore, just don't you be whores.
Oh my god, sexismus, misogynismus.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know if Susan would just kiss. Like YouTube doesn't like. So Jacob Andrew, Russia has a coal-powered aircraft carrier. A coal-powered aircraft carrier. Get the fuck out. Dude, no, you can't power an aircraft carrier with coal. I don't fucking believe. Like, how much coal would you need?
Yeah, I mean, then again, how much diesel? Only like a few countries have nuclear powered ones. Like a lot of countries still have diesel powered ones. How much diesel fuel must you need?
My fucking.
I just would imagine you can't have an open fire pit with coal in it, but
Like, I know Russia during World War II, they would have planes that ran on vodka. Like, the engine was designed so you can put vodka in it and run. Like, that blew my mind. And there was like another one. How do you call that thing that women use to do their nails?
acetone.
No, no, no. Like the thing that it's of metal and you rub up and down the nails.
Oh, an emery board?
What?
The thing that they use it's like
Yeah.
sandpaper.
Yeah. What did you call
I
it?
think it's called an emery board.
Okay. So apparently there was this exposition where the Russians would show off, like after the Cold War, was this exposition in Russia where they would show some of the engines. And there were a couple of American experts, curious to see. And they were just, initially they were laughing, but then they got their mind blown when they actually saw that the engines the Russians had were like decades in front of what they were supposed to be having. So
Of
the
course.
Americans, they're like, how the fuck did you got this? And apparently it's like Ivan with the emery board was just chipping away at the metal until it got the desired effect. Now, apparently you couldn't mass produce it, but they would have people just sitting there, like manually doing the thing that should have been mass produced. And that's how they managed to come up with the better design.
I don't know. I guess yeah. Some people say in the chat are saying it's called a nail file. Like the only reason I know it's called an emery board, I buy them for fine sanding in bullet when I make bullets. So I know that on the box it says emery board, but I think a nail file is the same
Yeah,
thing.
like the guy actually stood with a nail file next to the engine in order to give it the right shape. I mean, that's just.
That doesn't surprise me. As I said, like you'd be shocked at how people get away with that kind of stuff. You know?
Abdi Mohammed, when will I get an invitation to be on the show? Contact me on Twitter. Maybe we can do something next week, but it's probably going to be deleted like this one. Although I'll I'll leave this one up until it gets uploaded on BitShit.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I got to run anyway. It's getting on. I
Like,
have to go back
how
to work.
ridiculous it is! Like nothing we said is illegal.
Yeah, I didn't do anything bad this time. I've been very good.
I just called a couple of slurs and yeah. I mean,
Although I have to say, I could find the link. There's an article where Greta Thunberg did like lip syncing with the I forgot the name of it. It's like one of those pop songs. It is by far the funniest thing I think I've ever seen. Like you have to see this video of her singing. Like I'm not going to say anything worse because I don't want to get you in trouble. But I'm saying you have to watch this. Like hours of entertainment. You could just put this thing on loop and laugh.
Anyway, thank you so much for being here, and thank you guys
Thank you.
for the donations. Appreciate it, and maybe we can do it again in a week or two.
Whenever.